Hi guys, so this video is going to be about the hardships Native Americans faced when white settlers were coming in and taking over their lands. We talked about in the previous video that Andrew Jackson had put forth the Indian Removal Act, which made all of the Native American tribes move out of their current land and into a smaller territory in Oklahoma. And this is just kind of the hardships that they faced before, leading up to those events, and then during. So we first have white settlers coming in and disrupting the buffalo. Now, what's interesting about this is that Native Americans were using buffalo for many different things. They used the whole animal. If you hunt, you know that you can use different parts of the animal for different things. So it is very central part of their lifestyle. And what's also interesting about the Native Americans is that they only are hunting as much as they need. Okay, so they're not like over hunting and killing every buffalo because they want those buffalo to come back next year. So what the problem with the white settlers coming in is that not only are they taking over these Native Americans' land, but they're also over hunting the buffalo to the point where the buffalo almost becomes extinct. I know they were endangered for a very long time, and I believe they are just getting back up to some pretty good numbers, but that is what's happening there. We also see the United States over time developing treaties, which is kind of like a promise with Native Americans, and they end up going back on every single treaty that they made with them. They break every single treaty. So their relationship is just torn. We have the United States Army sending troops in to defend white settlers, even though that doesn't really make sense, right? Because the Native Americans were there first. That is where they have resided for thousands of years. And yet we have the United States Army defending these newcomers, these new white settlers, because of this idea of manifest destiny that we talked about in the last video. They have this idea that they are chosen to go out west by God and expand their civilization. So these are just some of the ways that Native Americans were mistreated. We also have the Dawes Act. So the Dawes Act was passed to basically Americanize Native Americans. We see that with a lot of colonizers coming over to a new place and seeing the people there and thinking, hey, these people are way different than us. They must be doing it wrong. We need to help them. We need to fix them so that they can look exactly like us because we obviously are the ones doing it right. That is the mindset that these people are taking too. With the Dawes Act, they stripped the tribes of their native land. Okay, so they under the Dawes Act, these Native Americans do not own any land. They end up giving them smaller plots of land and telling them, hey, you guys need to start farming this because that's what we do, and you need to be exactly like us. They also force Christianity on Native American children. They force them to go to schools and practice Christianity. They force them to forget all of their traditions, kind of brainwashing them into being really ashamed of their past, which is really, really sad. We have Native American traditions and customs being outlawed, illegal. They were not allowed to practice them, and also not allowed to speak their own language. So they had to learn English, and if they were speaking their native language, they would be punished. So pretty harsh conditions. We talk about the word assimilation when we talk about Native American experience at this time, because a lot of them were the children were being forced to go to school, and in later years, they would actually be kidnapped from their families and brought to these boarding schools where they would have to practice Christianity and try and assimilate or become more similar to those white settlers, these white Western expansions. So I have pictures here from a boarding school. They used to take photos of before and after. So here we see just the little boy. It's kind of crazy how young he is. We talked kind of about manipulation of children when we talked about the Confederacy and how they're pushing these ideas on kids because they're just so easily persuaded at such a young age. So we have such a young kid there in his native clothing, and then after when he's told to put on a suit and shoes and pose like that. And we see that also with the other side. They also cut their hair, which if you know anything about Native American tribes, some tribes their hair is like really sacred to them. So that's just another blow to them too. This picture is really, really heartbreaking to look at, I think, because we see in this photo in their native clothing, but then over here forced to put on those Americanized suits, and just like the fear and the sadness in not only their like faces but their body language, just like very stiff and very posed. You can just tell that like the emotions are, I don't know, I don't have words to describe that photo. It's just really heartbreaking. So anyway, make sure you are getting your Native American project done. Make sure you're checking that checklist that I have on Google Classroom. And if you have any questions, let me know.